I think I myself fell victim to completely misunderstanding your story. I think the average person who knows your name, if they haven't done any extra due diligence on like what your story is, it's very much assumed that you went to prison and got in trouble with the law because of raising a drug price. And even there, like at first, if you Google it, there's this drug Daraprim, which it sounds important. But from there, then I heard that you went to it because you raised the price of insulin, and they were just naming various drugs. So elephant out of the room, obviously, you got caught doing something that you shouldn't have done. What was that whole story?
Yeah, so I went to jail for fraud. I had a hedge fund where I managed clients' money, and those clients thankfully did really well. It is still a crime if you tell any kind of lie or make any misleading statement whatsoever. Most frauds and Ponzi schemes and things like that, they end with everybody crying, everybody broke, with no money left over. I made my investors 3 to 5 times their money, depending on when they invested. No investor lost money, so I'm really proud of that and happy of that. Obviously, it's not a good thing to lie or mislead or do any of that. Paid my debt to society. It's a big, heavy price to pay. I didn't make any money from the hedge fund, so it was really painful personally. But I'm at least proud my clients did well. So, there's a Bloomberg article. I think the title was "Why is Shkreli going to prison if his clients made money?" It was like, it's a good question, but it's still wrong to mislead or lie, no matter what you do. And I regret the actions I did. And, it's time to move on and grow as a person and do better.
So I think a lot of people listening right now, and potentially if this is the first time hearing that story, like right away, you're like, oh, it's funny because the media painted it as like Farmer Bro raised the price of drugs, going to prison. And like, obviously, if you read it, I hope that they explained it didn't really have to do with that. So right there, I think it's kind of the first thing where people are like, oh, okay, maybe I don't know really what happened here. But if we focus on the thing that got you those negative pejoratives of like saying the most hated man in America, I wrote this down. I don't know if you know this, but in 2017, the Lown Institute gave you an award for the worst examples of profiteering and dysfunction in healthcare. So, I mean, let's be honest. I've never really won awards in my life, and you won one, but it doesn't sound like the best one to win.
Yeah. Well, I think people have an emotional reaction to healthcare. That's doesn't apply to other goods and services. And there are no laws that make healthcare goods and services any different from any other goods and services in any industry, whether it's tech or consumer products or anything like that. So the laws of economics don't just vanish because it's a healthcare product. And if you go to a doctor and say, you need a brain surgery and it's $1 million brain surgery, it's going to take a lot of the hospital's resources. It's going to be 5 surgeons, 3 nurses, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to get the surgery for $1 million just because you want it. At the end of the day, pharmaceuticals sort of get a bad rap, but there is no free service in healthcare in general. There's money in the healthcare system in every single turn of it. And nobody should be surprised that there's money in pharmaceuticals. I think the big thing that I did that was different from others, and I don't regret it, is that I was willing to say that. Whereas I think a lot of people sort of are they're not willing to do that. They want to hide and obscure the fact that this is a $3 trillion industry. And I've never met a physician who works for free. I've never met a nurse who works for free. I've never met a hospital that gives away their healthcare to anyone but the poorest of patients. I've never met a drug company that says, we don't want to sell this drug for profit. We're going to give it away. Every single part of the healthcare business, which is what it is capitalized on by capitalist actors. And actually, I think that's a good thing. I think that's what makes it work. That's why America has the best healthcare in the world, in my eyes. That's why we have the most amount of drug treatments, the most amount of research. The whole world envies our biotechnology industry. There is no biotechnology industry in Europe. There is no biotechnology industry in China. There's a reason we're the best at that. There's a reason that people come from all over the world to go to Memorial Sloan Kettering or the Mayo Clinic or places like that, because America leads in innovation, and it takes money to lead in innovation. We don't cry about it when it comes to Apple. We don't cry about it when it comes to Microsoft and Facebook and Google. Those companies make a lot of money too, and they're very innovative. So when it gets really personal, when we think about pharmaceuticals for some reason, or for medicine in general, because we all feel like healthcare is a human right, and it is. But how we provision that right and like how we actually distribute it is something that's complicated. It's difficult, especially in a very big country like America, where you have 300 million people you have people who are really, really wealthy and you have people who are very poor. And how do you make sure that everybody sort of gets healthcare? Obviously, the wealthy people take care of themselves, but what do you do about the poor people and the uninsured people and the undocumented people and the people who are just above poverty level? All those are really tough cases. We've tried to solve them, right? Medicaid is for people who have very little income. Medicare is for people who are older. There's a number of, kind of tools and programs to ameliorate, difficulty in healthcare. Again, it's not that easy. But the funny thing I think most people don't know, Matt, is that there are a lot of drugs that are really expensive. There are $1 million drugs. Daraprim is around $50,000. So there are drugs 30, 40 times more expensive than Daraprim. And nobody talks about those. So if I'm the most hated man in America, well, what about the other 40 or 50 drugs more expensive than Daraprim? So again, I don't want to talk too much about the past. I'm ready to move on. I acknowledge mistakes. I think life is about second chances and, forgiveness. And, I've made my share of fuck ups in life. I've made my share of great successes too. I think that Daraprim, I wouldn't call it a fuck up. I think maybe the way I explained it and handled it could have been better. But again, I also think that I tried to explain and handle it really carefully, calmly, in great detail. But I think people want a villain. Like they want that bad guy. Like, oh yeah, that guy is sort of fun to hate, and I got to admit, it was kind of fun to be that bad guy. Like it was kind of cool to get attention from, all kinds of famous people like Steve Colbert or whatever, and kind of go back and forth with him. And, it's funny because this is the first interview I'm doing publicly, I'm pretty sure, that was pre-scheduled. And I've gotten offers from Good Morning America, Tucker Carlson, some of the biggest media outlets in the country. And this is just much easier because I could do it on webcast. But I think that, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And, if anybody knows the media business and anything like that, I mean, again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but to get a fairly top tier interview, for your sort of show, I think is pretty solid sort of get. I mean, a lot of people I've turned down that are on television have millions of viewers and things like that. So
I truly appreciate it.